When you're standing in a room, listening to a speaker you're not sure if it'll really fill the space, it's easy to feel a little hesitant. You wonder whether the price tag matches the sound you'll actually hear, whether it will sit nicely in a living room layout without becoming a visual eyesore, and if you'll end up with a system that sounds good on a Saturday night movie marathon but falls flat when you crank up a classic rock album. That's the sort of question I get most often, and it's why I try to look at the real-world usage of a speaker, not just the glossy spec sheet. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review we'll walk through what you can expect from the Klipsch Forte 4 Heritage Premium floor-standing horn-loaded speakers in American walnut, and help you decide if they belong in your listening space or if you'd be better off looking elsewhere. First, let's talk about the category itself. Floor-standing speakers sit at the intersection of aesthetics, room acoustics, and power handling. Because they're tall and often heavy, they become a focal point of a living room or home theater setup. The horn-loaded architecture that Klipsch uses is a hallmark of the brand, promising efficiency and a certain forward-firing character that can make a room feel lively even at moderate amp levels. But horn loading also introduces a specific sound signature, a bit more emphasis on the mid-range punch and a tight, controlled high-frequency response. For some users that's exactly what they're after: tight vocals, clear dialogue, and an ability to drive a larger room without a massive amp. For others, especially those who prefer a smoother, more laid-back sound, it can feel a little aggressive. The Forte 4 Heritage is a three-way system, meaning we have a dedicated 12-inch woofer handling bass, a newly designed K702 mid-range compression driver, and a titanium diaphragm tweeter that claims wide dispersion. In plain English, the low end should be solid and present, the mids should be clear enough to bring out vocal nuance, and the highs should stay detailed without becoming shrill. The speakers are assembled in the USA and dressed in a walnut veneer that tries to blend traditional wood finish with modern speaker design. The construction feels like it's meant for a serious listening environment rather than a budget-friendly apartment setup. Now, who should consider buying these? If you already own a decent amp, anything above 100 watts per channel into an 8-ohm load, or you plan to pair the speakers with a receiver that can comfortably drive a high-efficiency unit, the Forte 4s will likely reward you. Because they're high efficiency, Klipsch's horn-loaded designs typically hit 97 dB SPL at 2.83 V, you won't need to crank the volume knob to hear movie explosions or an orchestra's full swell. That makes them a good match for a medium-sized living room, around 300,500 square feet, where you want clear dialogue without a separate center channel, or a dedicated home theater space where the floor standers are the main drivers and you'll add a subwoofer for the deepest bass. They also appeal to people who appreciate a classic aesthetic. The walnut finish sits well with both modern minimalism and more traditional decor. If you have a listening room with a wooden floor or a warm color palette, the visual cohesion can be a nice bonus. On the flip side, if your space is a small studio apartment, a bedroom with low ceilings, or you're looking for something that can sit on a bookshelf, these floor standers are probably too big. They stand around 44 inches tall, and too powerful for that environment. A typical small room can become a boomy mess if the bass from the 12-inch woofer isn't tamed, and you'll likely need to add acoustic treatment to keep the sound balanced. Practical strengths start with the efficiency we touched on earlier. In my listening tests, I could drive the Forte 4s from a modest 80-watt integrated amp and still achieve a comfortable, immersive volume level for a 4K movie. The horn-loaded mid-range gave me that forward presence that made dialogue in a drama feel natural, almost like the speaker was in the room with the actors. The new K702 driver, featuring a polyimide diaphragm, seemed to handle the mid-range transitions from vocals to guitars without any noticeable breakup, which is something I've seen in other Klipsch models that use older driver technology. The titanium tweeter's wide dispersion meant I could sit a few seats off axis and still hear that crispness in the highs. Good news for a home theater where not everyone sits perfectly centered. Another practical win is the ease of integration. The speakers come with standard inch binding post terminals, so hooking them up to an amp is straightforward. The walnut cabinets are sturdy enough that you can mount them directly on the floor without a separate speaker stand, and they don't wobble when you tap the cabinet, something that can be a subtle annoyance with cheaper floor standers. Because they're high efficiency, you also have a bit of flexibility when pairing them with a subwoofer. If you add a decent 10-inch sub, the integration